Okay, so for my first text, I have a Newsela article called Agriculture in Ancient Egypt. Newsela says it was, I believe, a 5th grade level. The Lexile was 740. Flesch Kincaid said 5.6. So there's pictures that support the text, different sections about agriculture with ancient Egypt. We talked about the Nile and how important that is, canals, animals, different crops, farmers and trade, and there's headings for it. So what I would do for this article would be have the students read it independently and then assign them into partners or groups and then divide up the sections so they can discuss, what was really important in that section and use a graphic organizer to organize it. And then at the end, they would present it to the class so everyone learns more in depth about each area in the article. Next is The Egyptians. It's a reference book. Look into the past. It is by Roger Coote. So the Flesch Kincaid on this is 7.1. So if I'm using 7th grade as my grade level, it would be on grade level. There's lots of pictures in it, kind of smaller text about each area, and divides it up into different parts of Egyptian life. So what I would do for this is probably read it aloud to students, probably just do one section a day, build some background knowledge with them and use a doc camera so they can follow along, but they can also access it with me reading it to them if they're not quite on grade level. So one of my unit goals was about Egyptian hieroglyphs and kind of the contributions that Egyptians made. So I chose this book to kind of go a little more in depth into their communication. It is very difficult complex text. So the Flesch Kincaid for this book is 15.7. As you can see, it's a lot of smaller text. Even the captions for the graphics and the pictures are kind of small and difficult to read. So what I would do for this would I be rewriting it. So pick out the section that I would use. I would not use this whole book. And rewrite it, and then in a small group, work with the students. In the small group, we'd work with just one section, take a look at the book, and talk about the text features, how we would use it. Look at when it says see page 46, how to do that. Look in the back at the glossary and the index. There's a sample translation page, and then from there, we would read a section that I have rewritten for them, such as love and family. In the small group, I'd have them choose a section. So, for instance, love and family, we would read about it, and then I'd have them look at different symbols that they use. So, maybe not all appropriate. And they would come up with their own message for it. With the hieroglyphs, so in the back there's like a translation kind of guide and all the hieroglyphs that you would use, reference file. So then using that, they would come up with a simple message, maybe like, do you love your wife? So then they would create a poster and put the hieroglyphics on one side, and then on the other side, we'd also talk about the use of emojis in modern day and how we use them to communicate as well with symbols and pictures. And then they would kind of use the common emojis that people see today and create the same message on the right side of the T-chart poster. And then underneath, kind of write a paragraph, what they learned about hieroglyphics and the importance of them and how we use a similar system today with emojis and text. The next text I have is a graphic nonfiction novel. A lot of my junior high kids are really into nonfiction. So this is Cleopatra, The Life of an Egyptian Queen. It is by Gary Jeffrey and Anita Guneri. The Lexile is 720, and the Flesch Kincaid was a 5.4. So it's a little different to read a graphic novel, so obviously it makes it a little more complex. You have to read the speech bubbles, but also the descriptions on the side. There's lots of good illustrations that help the students understand about important Egyptian leaders. So I would use this as an example to learn about Cleopatra, who's one of the Egyptian leaders, and then I'd probably have them research a little bit more about other Egyptian leaders like King Tut, and then create their own just one-page comic strip of an event that was important in their life or how they contributed to ancient Egypt. One of my online resources is from National Geographic Kids. It's exploring ancient Egyptian mysteries. So they actually talked to an Egyptologist, which I didn't even know that existed, Chris Naughton, and interview him. So there's a whole interview about what he learned about King Tut. So the Flesch Kincaid for this article or interview is about a 7.8. It's a pretty simple website to use, few graphics, and it's organized pretty well. So I'd probably just talk about how to read an interview, and then the way I would use it is maybe at the end have the students come up with questions for an Egyptologist about anything that we've learned in ancient Egypt and what they might interview them about. This next website, it's loading, is from the Children's University of Manchester, and there's a section all about ancient Egypt. So they have